What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, we have, I'm going to probably butcher his last name, Nick Gregoriades. So he's a guy that originally I saw on, he had a website, Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood. I'm sure it may still be up there. And, was doing some of that stuff back. It was like, putting up a blog and stuff like way back in like 2009, 2010, long time ago. And, he's been around for a long time. And we ended up having him on the podcast today, and especially the beginning of the podcast is not really going to be much jiu-jitsu related at all. I mean, there's a little bit of an attachment to there, but whenever we get someone on, I start kind of getting interested in sometimes, because obviously we're all the same. We all have probably a wide variety of interests, and some of the interests that he has, I share as well, like things such as rites of passage and ritual, and the development of men, like what it means to be a man in society, all these types of things. I think those are interesting questions to play with, and so we get into a little bit of that, and then obviously we bring it back to jiu-jitsu. So I mean, really, it's nothing you guys aren't used to before. I mean, because random tangents is kind of the name of the game. We nestled into a nice little jiu-jitsu covering. But there's a lot of random tangents, so we're going to get into a lot of that here in the podcast. Hopefully, we can have him on again and talk to him a little bit more in depth, because obviously an hour, which is the case with most of the guests, an hour is not enough time to speak with these people about a lot of the subjects that we could dive into them with. But that said, at the same time, I like keeping the podcast relatively short, because, again, sometimes you see like a 3-hour podcast, you're like, oh man.
It's commitment.
It's a big commitment. It's a big commitment to make it, and it's a big commitment to listen to it. Because you can only listen to a couple 3-hour podcasts. Whereas like you can listen to some that are like an hour, minute. That's not too big of a deal. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for being here. We're gonna jump into this podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you gain something from it, or gain something from it. Get something from it. Gain something. I think gain something from it is correct. So
I'm with you.
We'll go with it. And with that said, guys, thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen, Charlotte's Web. Guys, if you've never tried CBD before and you're interested, I encourage you to try some of their products. Go to their website at charlottesweb.com. They have a wide array of products. They have everything from tinctures and gummies and all the normal CBD stuff. They also have a THC-free one, which is a relatively new product that they came out with, which again is NSF certified sport, which means that if USADA was going to come up to you and P-test you and see if you have THC in your system, that the company NSF would say, okay, no, like you would be okay with this. Then USADA has that cleared. It's on their website, which is pretty cool. So if you're someone that has to worry about that kind of stuff, it could be a fantastic product for you. And then they also have things like balms and rubs, which you can use on sore muscles. I'm a big fan of those products. Like when I'm banged up from training or something like that, I'll use those balms and rubs. And it was actually a CBD balm that originally got me interested in CBD products in the first place, because I used it and I actually felt like relief from the issue that I was having. I was like, well, that was kind of neat. Let me get into this stuff and try it out. And so again, if you've never tried their products, or if you've never tried CBD, I encourage you to give it a test run. My encouragement with people is to try out for a month and see what kind of effects you have on it. Again, CBD is a compound, and just like any other supplement, it can affect people wildly different. I mean, you look at people online, and if they talk about one supplement, it can have a myriad of different responses in people's bodies. And so again, you want to see what it does for you personally, not what it does for Chewy, not what it does for Eugene. You want to test it out for yourself. And again, I encourage you, if you're interested, to use our promo code on their website, Chewjitsu20. So if you go to their website at charlottesweb.com, promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20. You'll save 20% on the order on whatever you buy. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll, Matt at Epic Roll BJJ.com. He is a black belt in jiu-jitsu who produces jiu-jitsu gear and merch and all that other stuff for jiu-jitsu people. I'm actually getting ready to work with Matt on a new batch of jiu-jitsu rash guards and shorts. And we're actually getting ready to test run some shorts that are slightly shorter.
Yes.
So we're going to see what those look like. Again, we'll get some more stuff out there to you. I like his stuff. I'm a big fan of Matt. Here's a little lesson for some of you guys. This could be interesting. So this is where the relationship with Matt happened, and this could be just kind of fun. I actually shared this in my business newsletter recently, because a lot of people, they come up to people and they're wanting someone to do something for them. Like I'll see all the time, like people ask me, hey, Chewy, how do you get sponsorships? Like I'm a competitor. How do I get sponsorships? Or someone will send me a message like, hey, Chewy, I want to help you grow your business. How about you pay me X amount of money? I'm like, I don't know you. I've never had a conversation with you. And now you're asking me for money, and like with sponsorships, if you're a young up and comer, people probably aren't going to know you. So you have to think about like, well, what could you do for that person? And so the relationship with Matt started because he sort of put me first because he wanted to do business with me. He was like, hey man, here's some of my products. Try all this stuff. Gave me a whole crap ton of stuff. Even had a really cool little
jump
drive that I, that he put a video on. It was like I popped it in. It's him talking to me. Very nice touch. And so like I used the stuff, I liked it, and we've done business together for several years. Right. He's been a part of the podcast. I've got my stuff made for Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm going to do I'm going to do a set of gym competition rash guards and shorts with him for the gym. And that started because he was like, hey, let me like reach out to this person and put him first. And so again, I think that Matt is one of those people that he's a good dude. And I think that he's in it for the right reasons, which is service to others. Right. So he's not just trying to make a crappy product and like, hey, let me make a quick buck. He's trying to do good service. He's trying to, a lot of times you'll have little extras when you get the products that he sells, not always, but sometimes. And, he does a lot of cool stuff and tries to put forth that kind of foot forward, I guess you would say, that service to others sort of mentality. And again, I think it comes through with his work and the products that he makes. And so again, if you guys want to check out some of his stuff, whether you needed a rash guard, gi, shorts, or you just want some really cool jiu-jitsu t-shirts, check him out. His website is epicrollbjj.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu for 15% off. And guys, check out NordVPN if you guys are interested in, getting a VPN or using a VPN. I could tell you all of there's like, a bazillion megabits per second servers, stuff like that. I don't know what any of that means. All I know is that you can actually use it to be safer when you're in places like, and again, this is where I'm thinking about it. Like I just got done traveling and I've got a lot of traveling planned for the year with seminars and things like that, which means I'm going to be in airports and I'm going to be in coffee shops and stuff like that with my computer and phone, things like that. What I like is having the idea that you can have protection, that you can log into one of these servers and it can help encrypt your information rather than you just being out and about. And I think that's a nice feature to it. And so for me, when I'm thinking about it, whenever I do these, they're typically called reads, which I'm not reading anything. But whenever we have a product come on board, I always think about it from the sense of like, how would I actually use this? Because again, if I can't think about how I'd use it, I feel very robotic. In the sense of like trying to, well, you should buy their product because it's whatever. The thing about it is it's incredibly inexpensive. I guess it maybe could not be inexpensive if you don't have $2, but if you got $2, it's pretty inexpensive. And again, it's a cool thing to be able to be secure because again, so much of who we are is on their phones, on our computers, all that stuff. And again, most of the time we don't even worry about it. And most of the time there's nothing to worry about it. But the one time that it comes in handy, it's worth its weight. And so again, if security, encryption, if you've traveled a lot, stuff like that, it could be a really useful tool. What I would encourage you to do if you've ever heard of a VPN and maybe you're interested in checking it out is go to their website, nordvpn.com/Chewjitsu, CHEWJITSU. You can get 4 months for free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, which means if you don't like it, don't love it, you can always get your money back. But you can also look on their website and you can go through the list of all of their benefits and their features. You can see what kind of speed you're working with, what kind of server stuff, if that's something that you know about. But again, if you want to just test run it, you can do so by going to their website. And again, you can get 4 months for free using the website at nordvpn.com/Chewjitsu. And guys, if you want to support the podcast directly and get access to some cool exclusive content, there's so much stuff in that darn thing. The Patreon is
a lot.
Patreon.com/The Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Make sure you put the THE in there, The Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Again, along with the content that we add in there, the extras and everything else, you'll also get access to a couple of bonuses immediately upon joining, one of which is a stretching video. Like we talk in this podcast about how important mobility is in doing hip circles and things like this, or joint circles. Eugene did a stretching sort of mobility session at our gym. It's 20 minutes long. Follow along, try it out. I mean, to me, like the price of that, the price for which is inexpensive, the price of the Patreon that's worth that alone. If you get that and you do that routine, that 20-minute routine, like once a day for like a month. I mean, like you couldn't tell me that you couldn't do it and feel better. So again, just a thought. And then also I share a seminar where I go through some of my favorite gi and no-gi techniques and show you some of my best stuff and how to use it. And again, both of those are included with the package that you get when you join the Patreon. So again, if you want to get that, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And then last but not least, guys, if you want to get my daily email newsletter, which can be everything from really philosophical ideas to tangible advice on how to train. And then sometimes just random stuff. Like today's email was a guy who basically had a troll comment on YouTube, and I was responding to it, and it was hilarious because he called me
What'd you get called this time, Chewy?
well,
Let's hear it.
It was bad words.
Well, you can.
We're adults,
beep.
so
I'll beep it out as you say.
You don't have to beep it out. So so here's what I'm going to share this with you. If you join the email newsletter, it's not me just telling you to buy stuff. I will tell you like about products that I have coming up, but I like to have fun with people. And so, like, for instance, I'll read you the first little bit of this. Quote says, "Welcome back to another edition of Grappling with Comments from Trolls. Today's contributor, good old Bob Jim, comes to us all the way from his mom's basement with his challenge vocabulary he writes on YouTube." And then we get into, this is Bob's quote. "LOL, I'm sorry but grappling is the faggiest shit." Spelled shit wrong.
Oh boy.
BRB, dry humping a guy doggy style trying to get into full mount. Do you guys see? It gets really gnarly from there.
That's pretty bad to start.
See the duct tape part. Yeah. So I don't want to go through it because again, we don't need to get in there, but it's funny.
People are so silly.
But anyway, so I basically talk about that comment. We have fun with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people enjoyed it. Like we were having a good laugh about it. But anyway, so good. If you guys want to join the email newsletter, I also give away 3 free and it's plus some videos and stuff like that, but 3 free jiu-jitsu resources at the time of recording this. If you want to get a hold of them, you can go to chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. Upon joining, you'll get access to the daily email, the Chew Crew email, and then you'll also receive the email or the jiu-jitsu resources that I give away upon joining. So go there and join up. And guys, with that said, let's jump into this podcast with Nick. Where are you living these days? Because I know at one point, I don't know how long you lived there, but my buddy Dave owns the Undisputed Gym in Tucson.
Yeah, David Riley.
Yeah, and I know you were down there at one point. Where are you at these days?
Now I live in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know you knew David. That's cool. He's a really cool dude.
Yeah, Dave was one of my old training partners back in the day. He was like here in Louisville, in Kentucky, before he moved out to Arizona.
We were just talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we trained with him for
my first day. My first day in the gym on the mats was Dave gave me a class. It was me and actually I was the only white belt that showed up, and Dave was there. So me and him, he was the one that taught me. The very first day I was there. Dave was always really, really cool guy.
I look back at that time in Tucson, and I made like 4 friends in that 3 years that I lived there, and Dave was one of them. He's got such a good heart. He's one of those guys, like he's just a good human being. Got a lot of time for him.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How did you you're not originally from the States. How did you kind of make your way, just to kind of a little bit of background on you and your jiu-jitsu, starting jiu-jitsu and stuff? How did you kind of make it to the States and kind of before that, like you're starting jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I made it to the States because I married an American woman in when was that? 4 or 5 years ago that I got married. I think it was probably 5 years ago now.
Okay.
And that's how I met it. Like her family was in Arizona, and just thought it was a good idea to go live in Arizona and be near her family. And then my jiu-jitsu before that, man, I've been training coming up on 20 years now, 23 years. Either grappling or jiu-jitsu or some kind of martial arts. So when I was 24, I moved to England and started training at Roger Gracie Academy. Spent a few years there, got my black belt from him, and then spent some time traveling the world, teaching, just training around the world. And then I moved to the States, and then I got divorced a few years ago, and then I moved from Arizona to Los Angeles, and that's how you guys are speaking to me here now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What do you? I feel like because I follow you, but I'm not on social media and everything all that much, so I miss stuff. What kind of stuff do you have going on? Because I feel like I've seen some different like retreats and stuff like that you've been involved with.
Yeah, I've got a few different things. I teach at Grapplers Retreat
Hmm.
quite often in Northern California. That's a really special place, by the way. I'm sure Alex, the owner, he's one of my best friends. I'm sure he'd love to have you out, Nicholas, if you're ever interested
Yeah,
as
sure.
a guest instructor. It's a really special experience. Um, I've been doing work as a men's coach for a while as
Hmm.
well, doing like some ayahuasca retreats with men as well for a while. Uh, what else? Written a couple of books on jiu-jitsu. Just been doing stuff I find interesting, and yeah, I had my men's podcast. I had a jiu-jitsu themed podcast as well,
Hmm.
but I mean, I don't know if you're at this point yet, but I found it difficult to like. There's only so much you can talk about jiu-jitsu, right? Like especially if you're doing it all the time, right? So like
Hmm.
I'd been like 15 years doing this thing and had like 100 guests, and I was like, yeah, okay, I want to start talking about some other things, you know.
Sure.
Um, and I still like talking about it, but it's like I didn't want to be just
Right.
pigeonholed into talking about that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, like that. My podcast it's growing quite a bit, and we just talk about everything on there. You know, everything that I suppose like everything anyone who's interested in uh, advancing themselves would talk about, like philosophy and
Mm.
psychedelics and relationships and entrepreneurship and anything that I find interesting. I'm more than excited to talk about it, and I find most things interesting.
Yeah. Well, when you say like a men's coach, like what's involved? Like what kind of things is involved with that? And um, I'm curious because I feel like in society like there's a weird sort of thing going on with like masculinity and being a man and the meanings of these and loss of rituals and like purpose and all these sorts of things.
Hmm.
What kind of things do you focus on as a men's coach, or do you see going on in the greater whole of society as far as like being a man? It's a very broad question.
Yeah, no,
Just letting you play around with it a little bit because I wouldn't be like, what do you do as a coach? Like, kind of just giving you some options there to mess around
Hmm.
with it.
Yeah. I think maybe the way that I could explain it best is just to tie it to my own journey and my own trajectory. I grew up in a society. I grew up in South Africa,
Mm,
and South Africa has a um, very macho culture, right? And I grew up as quite a scrawny, weak kid, and I my dad was this very virile, like Mediterranean. He was a Greek guy, like ladies man, like tough guy. He was a karate black belt, like super masculine alpha dude. And I was kind of this kid who was like super sensitive and nerdy and just I don't know. I wouldn't say I was a disappointment to him, but I always felt like I was, and I always felt like I
mm,
was seeking his approval. And then we're also in the context of this society whereby, like, especially if you're a white person in South Africa, you're surrounded by like millions of black people that hate you and want to kill you, and for good
mm,
reason, right? Like, I mean, like you have what they want, and most of the time you got what you have because you subjugated them, right? Like,
mm,
I'm not saying me or my family did that specifically, but that's basically what it was like in South Africa. Like the wealth of the country was built off the backs of exploited black people. So there was this very uneasy sort of tension that was always present, um, especially amongst men and white men, because you knew that you were like uh, surrounded by dudes who like if anything goes wrong, it's going to be these hordes against you, right? And so there was no real place for any appearance of weakness and any appearance of vulnerability. And I think all those things combined to kind of like make me swing to the other way. Like I was like, shit, I've got to really become masculine. I've got to figure out what it means to be masculine. And that's one of the reasons I found my path in martial arts, is because,
mm.
no one ever starts martial arts because they feel like they're enough. That's something I learned a long time ago. No one starts martial arts because they feel good or they feel like they've got it all. They start martial arts because, fuck, I'm missing something. I'm either missing a fitness component, or like I don't feel like I can stand up for myself, or like I need something. I need to be more than I am. And, throughout the course of this path, I kept finding different things about what it meant to be a man. One of them is, learning how to take care of yourself physically. And then another one is learning how to process emotions. Another one is learning how to be vulnerable. Another one is learning how to put others before yourself. I mean, there's all these different components. Another one is going through a rite of passage. There's all these different components and elements that I feel are not just necessarily for men, but for humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I became quite interested in that. And that led me to that path of coaching men, which I've actually dialed back a little bit because I was finding it incredibly draining. When I work with someone, I give them my full attention and I really invest in them, and it's a very draining process. And I just realized like I can only do it with a few people a year, so I've kind of dialed back on the marketing of that. Because I can't do it with more than 2 or 3 guys concurrently at a time, and so now I'm focusing on other things as well, specifically the podcast and growing my Jiu-Jitsu association. Long rambling answer, probably too broad.
Which was perfect because
Yes.
I gave you a very broad question to work with, so that's perfectly fine.
So like advancing yourself, and you talked about some different things. Is there something in particular that you feel like really helped you to grow as a human, as a man, that you feel like was very maybe life-changing? I know martial arts is obviously one of those things. There's something like later in life that you found that kind of helped to propel you to your growth as a human?
Well, that's a cool question, Eugene. I've found that I don't know if it's my karma or my dharma or whatever, like my destiny, but the way I've seemed to have learned throughout the course of my life is I have these peak experiences that occur at certain points, and they're usually incredibly intense and traumatic and difficult. And I look back, and the 3 that jump out all happened during the last 10 years. The first one was almost 10 years ago. It was a very powerful ayahuasca experience in South America, in Peru. And then 3 years ago, it was my divorce. My ex-wife at the time, or my wife at the time, like just out of the blue walked in and left me, or walked out and left me. And that was that opened a real big door into my understanding of who I am and all that. And then the last one, which I'm hoping, I'm really fucking hoping was the last big one, because I can't really take too many more of them, was November 5th last year. I had a near-death experience. My girlfriend and I and another couple, we went to a festival, and we took some magic mushroom chocolate, and it wasn't able to figure it out, but we suspect it was dosed with fentanyl, and we all just collapsed. And like my girlfriend died twice, I died once, the other woman died twice, my friend died once, like had to be revived. Like it was a really fucking traumatic experience. And to answer your question, Eugene, each of those things has been like a very powerful, pivotal point in my life where I've been like, fuck, I've got to really assess things and sometimes change things entirely. And sometimes let go of who I believed I was or what I was supposed to be doing. So I would say those are the 3 big ones. And then there's other ones, there's other things that I found over the course of the years, like meditation and yoga have helped a lot. And they, working with mentors has helped a lot, and reading, and just, I guess more than anything, it's just being committed to this constant, or to this ideal of constant, continual self-improvement.
What was the drive for the ayahuasca? Like, what was the desire? Is it something you just felt you needed to do? Is it something you were curious about?
Sorry, guys. I was actually prepared. I wasn't expecting you guys to ask such deep questions. I thought it was going to be a little bit more jiu-jitsu related. So I'm happy to answer them, but I have to switch into this mode.
Yeah.
We can switch it
We
back
can
if you
do
need.
jiu-jitsu too, man.
It's good. We can
Well,
get
so
there.
the reason why I started like leading off there is because, you know, like you said, like you've talked about jiu-jitsu a lot. So I'm like, well, like you seem to be someone that maybe has you know, some deeper thought processes to just, you know, certain things. And so like, well, okay, like, well, we can dive into that a little bit. And
No, I appreciate that very much. I'm switching into that mode.
yeah, it's a different mindset for sure.
Yeah, like I thought you were going to ask me like, how do we fuck dudes up? Like,
You know, when you said that, we were talking back and forth like through Instagram. When you said like, I want you to ask me things that I usually don't get asked or something different. I wanted to, and I kind of read up on you a little bit, not too much, because I like to kind of surprise myself too. I don't want to read too much and research
color
too
the
much.
Conversation. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I want it to be kind of organic. And like for me, like that stuff has always been, I've never done mushrooms or anything like that. It's something that's always been on my radar. And so that's why I ask, really, it's kind of a personal question for me, because I'm like, you know, we've talked to people that have done that. It's changed their perspective on life or their experiences. And I was like, I want to know why it drew you into that and how it's impacted you and changed your perspective on life and how you see things.
Yeah, Eugene, I think what that stuff always comes back to, like I looked at it now, like that event, November the 5th, was just short of 10 years of when I really started working with plant medicine and psychedelics. And I made a deal that I was done after that. Like, I mean, I should by all rights be dead. I went to the other side and saw my girlfriend. My girlfriend died in my arms. Like I saw things that, you know, I never wanted to see. And I went too far. I pushed it too far. But it was the lesson in that is related to your question. And the lesson I received was like, I'm enough. You know, I am enough, because I was always operating my whole life under this assumption, due to several things that happened in my childhood and the way I was raised and the belief systems that I was exposed to. I was operating under this premise that I'm not enough. I need more. I need to fix myself. I need to be a black belt, or I need to be better looking, or I need to make more money, or I need to have a better, or like a beautiful woman on my arm, or I never felt like I was enough. And that was the root of the plant medicine thing. That was the root of the jiu-jitsu thing. That was the root of everything I've done in my life up until that point. And now November 5th was a pivotal moment, because the very clear understanding I had was, yes, I'm a flawed human being like everyone else, but I'm enough. I'm enough. I'm enough to deal with life. Whatever comes, whether it's an overdose or, I mean, a car wreck or my wife leaving or whatever it might be, I'm enough to deal with it. And that sense of not being enough also stems from fear, right? Like it comes from a place of fear that like you're not going to be enough to respond to life, or you're going to be abandoned, or you're not going to be seen as good enough. And so that was the root of all of that, Eugene. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, is there like a paradox to that? Because like, you know, like when you think of like, say like old tribal rituals with like the men in the groups and stuff like that, there would a lot of times be a rite of passage for the man to go through in order to become sort of accepted as a man within that society. They had to go do something, experience something, basically to prove like, hey, you are a man in this society. We now accept you, and here's what it means to be a man in our society. We abide by these things. And I think about like, you know, like women, for instance. Women have this like gift of that they're, you know, most, not all women are given this gift to where they can bear life, right? They can create life within inside them, which we obviously contribute to. And I feel like so much of being a man is partly, again, you do have to learn that you are enough in one sense, but isn't there a side of it where you're like, well, we do have to be worthy in some respects, and we do that by building ourselves up and going down these different journeys of developing ourselves in a, you know, certain way or form. So is there like sort of like a pair, like many things, there's obviously these like dichotomies that work together that seem like they're diametrically opposed, yet they're at the same time working together.
Yeah, I think you've really just answered it yourself, Nicholas. Like there is I've found that in anything, if you go deep enough, at the heart of it, you always find an inherent paradox, always. And like jiu-jitsu is a great one. At the heart of it, the paradox is it's a paradox between yielding and advancing, always, right? Like, and yeah, like, am I gonna just sit on my ass and fucking eat Doritos and just be like, I'm enough, I don't need to? Like, no, like I'm not gonna do that. But now I move forward knowing that like I'm enough, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to prove anything to myself or anyone else. And do I think men should go through a rite of passage? Absolutely, yeah. I think just to like, you got to go in the deep waters, right? If you want to lead men, or if you want to like shepherd a family or spearhead a family, like, yeah, you got to go through deep waters. You got to have some practice, right, with the tough stuff, So like, I think there's definitely a place for that. But to base your self-esteem and your worthiness on things like that, I think is inherently flawed, because I mean, like jiu-jitsu is such a great example. Like I'm seeing now, like, man, my body's breaking down now. Like, I mean, I'm not like a wreck or anything, but I'm in my 40s and I can't do the shit I used to do. I just can't do it. Like, I can still roll and have a few tough rolls, but I can't fucking roll twice a day. I can't do it. My body just won't take it. And I can't, like, when the young 22-year-old brown belt from Brazil comes to visit the gym, and like, I can't kick the shit out of him. I can't. I can't fucking do it anymore. And if I'd based my self-worth on that, like I used to, then when that gets taken away, then what am I? Who am I? Right? So, again, there's a paradox. Yeah, you got to kind of stay on your edge, but you can't let the edge define you, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I think of it almost like a lot of times like that's stuff I've experienced. Like, I'm not old, but I'm getting like 37. And, it's one of those things where I think jiu-jitsu sometimes it gives you a chance to play with some of these things, because maybe you win a medal, or maybe you beat this person, or like you said, maybe you roll, twice a day, you destroy everyone, and then maybe you get older or whatever. And then you realize that thing that you sort of, that piece of information that you gained about yourself that you used almost as a crutch for your self-esteem. And then when it gets kicked out from underneath of you, then you have to like figure out, well, is there something else that I've got going on? Was that it? Or is it, something that you, like you said, you shouldn't just base it on these things.
Yeah.
But
my first coach said something. He was such an interesting guy. My first real martial arts coach. It's a South African guy named Ludwig. I'll never forget it. He was one of those dudes, like, you could just tell, you looked in this dude's eyes and he was like the real deal. You know what I mean? Like he like, my one friend used to call him the wolf, because he had these like piercing eyes. He would look at you and you'd fucking just be like, wow, this guy's intense. And he was one of the pioneers of martial arts, of functional martial arts in South Africa. And, like, he said to me once, like, because I was always trying to get better, and I was like, I want to beat you and I want to be the best. And like, and he looked at me and he said, sorry guys, it's my little cat. He's just knocked.
That's okay. I have two of them. They do the same stuff.
They're fucking, these little monsters are nuts. So he said to me, work on things that you can take with you when you die. And I never really understood what he meant, but over the years I've realized it's awareness, and it's connection with your higher self and connection with your spirit. Like, when you die, you can take that into the next life, or when you, I don't know, go to the next plane or whatever, that's yours forever. But your body, your jiu-jitsu skill, your money, your bank account, those things don't go with you. They just don't. Right? Now, again, there's an inherent paradox. When you're on the mat and you're struggling, and you're at that edge again, where you're at this place of discomfort and you want to give up, but you dig deep and you I don't know, like, find that deep resource within yourself, and you learn that thing about how you react under pressure. That is learning about yourself. That is something you can take with you when you die, right? Like, that is almost like, I used to call it like a deposit in your soul's bank account, right? When you like go through something like that. But the black belt, no, dude, or the medal or that stuff's not going with you. It's just not. Like I think back all my medals that I won, all those like gold medals and trophies and certificates, I threw them away. They were so meaningless to me in the end. They were just like, I don't even know where they are now. I left them doing some move or something, and they're just meaningless now, you know?
Now, how about this? So like you're a coach and you're a teacher. So I've come to the same sort of thing where like I'll compete and I really enjoy, because again, jiu-jitsu has like old people competitions, right? We can go compete sometimes. And so I'll compete in those divisions, and I'll do well, and I really enjoy being in the moment of those competitions and like trying to figure out someone's game and just being in that moment because you're so enwrapped in it. But like the actual getting of the medal is like the most, I just don't, I get it. I'm like, well, that's cool. Take a picture, boom, I'm done with it. I don't really care. But I know that as I've gotten older, like one of the things that I get most excited about is like watching some of my young students come through, not even young students. When I say young, I mean like just their experience level. They come through and then they start getting their hand raised and they start winning competitions. And I like it because some of them come in and they weren't athletic. They've never been good at something before. And then you give them this ability to be good at something and you get to see them, their confidence in themselves changes and they get to realize that, that they're far more capable than what they thought they were. Do you experience like a similar thing where as a coach, like, you have this journey, you've gone through all this stuff and now you're kind of coming backwards, almost like the Joseph Campbell sort of idea. You've come full circle here and now you're sharing the magic elixir with the students that you have. You're giving them this experience that you've gained from it and the lessons that you've learned. Does that become the most important part?
Yeah, that's so cool. That reminds me of, I absolutely feel that way. Chewy, that same coach, he was saying how like when you go compete with your students or with like the team, right? Like it's very similar to like if you consider a tribe going out to hunt. They go hunt and kill the animal and they come back and they have almost like a celebration. They partake in a meal together. It's this like bonding experience. Like we went and did that, right? And I'm sure that's very similar to you're probably tapping into some deep biological drive or circuit when you do that. When you see your students compete and succeed, it's almost like, I think it was in Avatar, one of those movies when like the guy sees his sorry, this little cat did. When the guy, like the father sees his son make its first kill, like on the hunt, it's like a special moment. Yeah, it's great. Like, I don't have children, like biological children, but some of my students, when I see them do well or when I see them grow and develop as people, it is far more rewarding and fulfilling than anything I could have done myself.
It's like, hey, bro, pay attention to me.
That's what he
for
does.
you guys listening and not watching the video. He's got a feline in his room, and the feline's like, hey, like pay attention to me. I see you're trying to do something else, and I'd like you to just be focused on me.
That's literally what he does. He just reaches over. He's like, when he's not getting here, he's going to do it again. Here we go.
Yeah, mine does the same thing. As soon as I flip on the if I'm doing some stuff at home and I'm doing like some recording or something, it's like it hears me talking and he'll come up and he'll like look at me and just kind of and then do the same stuff.
Yeah, look, if I was doing anything unimportant, he wouldn't give a fuck about me. As soon as I got to do something like this, he's I hear you.
So so you have a gym now out in LA, I guess? Or are you doing an association?
I have an association. My partner in the association owns the actual gym, our HQ, but we have 16 affiliated academies now. It's growing pretty quick. It's subconscious Jiu-Jitsu Association. I'm having a lot of fun with that as well. That's been, it's so cool to not have, the thing about Jiu-Jitsu that I realized that you guys I'm sure understand is it's a very individual endeavor, right? Like it's all about you, right? Like when you start, right? Like it's, again, like you want to get your next belt, you want to compete, you want to fix this thing inside yourself or upgrade your skills, and you have to be focused on yourself. You have to, or else you don't get good, right? And the problem with that is it's finite, right? Like there comes a point where you're just not young anymore. No one really gives a fuck anymore. Like who gives a fuck if you win Masters 4, right? Like no one gives a fuck, right? And then you realize like okay, well, this can't just be about me because it's such a finite, such a small thing. And with the association, that's what I'm really enjoying. Is I'm really enjoying helping these guys grow their schools and get better, and seeing their students grow, and that to me is a lot of fun. I really appreciate that a lot.
How do you build up your students? Do you feel like, is there something, if you see your students struggling mentally, emotionally on the mats, whatever, if you see them kind of consistently give up, like what do you do to encourage them or to kind of build that little fire, that resilience, like you said, put that, in the bank, kind of get them more fired up and get them a little more drive, I guess, so they don't quit, the less they're more resilient.
Yeah, just kick the shit out of them, bro.
Nah, I don't think that works now.
No. It's that inherent paradox is it's a very fine line between you've got to be stern, but not approving, stern, but what's the word when you motivate someone and you by giving them
Encouraging.
Encouraging, that's the word. You've got to be stern, equal parts stern and encouraging. And I think also, they say any organization, it's like it's a snake, right? The body of the snake is the thing that controls the way the snake moves is the head of the snake, right? That's why if you go to a gym and the instructor's a douchebag, the students are generally douchebags as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to a gym where the instructors stop learning and stop growing, that generally filters down into the way the students feel, So what I'm always trying to do, and the people I work with and run the association with me, we're similar in that, is that I never stop learning. Never, ever, ever. I know people say that it's such a cliched thing, but man, I really am always evolving and improving, not just my jiu-jitsu, but my mobility, my strength training, my psychology. I'm constantly like trying to be the very best representative and ambassador I am, so that I swore to myself I'd never be one of those guys, that those martial arts instructors that like they get fat and they start like they get on the mat, they put the gear on, but they're wearing their watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're out of shape, and they like, you can see they just stop growing. They become like stagnant and crystallized, right? And I just said, nah, dude, that's not my jam. I don't ever want to be like that. And I think the fact that I'm not like that, I think my students find that inspiring. I like to think they find it inspiring.
What are some things, because obviously you have an association, and so I imagine that when you were going into it, you were probably thinking of like, okay, here are some things that like I don't like, so here are some things that I want to make happen, something like that. Are there some things that you see in a lot of gyms or associations that people do poorly that you think either negatively affects the gym, the training, or the students themselves, which obviously they'll be negatively affected by all of those things?
I had this deep understanding a couple of years ago, which was that, if you think of, the example I use is take a plant, take a dark room, a dark room. And in that room are a bunch of potted plants. The plants haven't started growing. There's just seeds in the soil, but there's no lights. And if you take a sun lamp into that room and point it on one of those pots, that is where the plant is going to sprout up and start growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I've realized is like anything in life, your awareness, your attention is like that sun lamp, right? Like that's being shone on the potted plant. And the potted plant could be anything. It could be your jiu-jitsu academy. It could be your relationship with your girlfriend. It could be some skill you're trying to develop or whatever. But the point to make is that it requires sustained attention, sustained care, sustained focus, right? Otherwise, it'll just stop growing. It'll just splutter out and die, right? And I think that I saw it with my dad. Like he had a successful business and then he just took his eye off it and it just died, right? Like, and he fell into debt and lost everything. It's because he stopped giving it his care and attention. And I think that's often what happens with jiu-jitsu guys is they get a little bit burned out because with jiu-jitsu business owners, they try to do too much And, you know, they try to be competitors, they try to be teachers, they try to be gym managers, they try to run podcasts, you know, like, I mean, I remember at my height, like I had so many things. I was writing books, I was recording videos, I was teaching jiu-jitsu, I was traveling, teaching seminars, I was competing, I was doing all these things. And I got to the fucking point where I was like, man, I'm burned out on this thing, right? And so I stopped giving it my care and attention, and then it just would wither and atrophy, right? And I think that is definitely a thing. And it's one of the problems in jiu-jitsu is this, like, everyone talks about the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, and the jiu-jitsu lifestyle is cool and all, but the way we sold it is I think bullshit. It's this thing like, yeah, you've got to, like, this has got to become your whole fucking life, and you've got to, like, you know, if you're not training 3 times a day, you're someone's training to beat you up, and like, it's like that way of doing it leads to burnout, and burnout leads to you taking your attention off the thing, and when you take your attention off it, it just fucking dies. So I see that problem a lot with people, is they lose interest, stop giving attention, and then very long answer, but hopefully there's something in it that you guys can use.
No, I like that idea. And I think that a lot of times people get into projects, they get into like different sides of their business, and they get into other things, and they really don't think about what that's going to entail. They just say, well, I'm going to do one, like, just like, you know, like I said, putting up videos or doing podcasts or whatever, you know, like say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going to go do that. And, you know, they just say, well, I see other people doing it, so I'm going to do it too. And they don't think about like what they're going to have to offer up as a sacrifice of their time, attention, and everything else. And, you know, or even like when you're, like you said, with competing versus coaching versus all these other aspects, each one of those is going to require some sacrifice to be offered to, you know, to make that project work, to make that work. And if you're not willing to do it, or if you can't do that for a long time, it's going to be bad. I think that really comes down to people not really thinking about how they wish to actually structure their lifestyle before getting into it. They get into it and they're like, oh shit, this isn't good. I'm strapped to the gills. I'm busy. I'm burned out. And then they start pulling back from there. So I think that's smart advice.
I think you don't understand what it entails, how much, you know, even doing a video, like, it's not just recording a video. It's like I have to edit and then post and write about it, and a lot of your thought process and your effort. So if you have other aspects of your life are going to suffer. Like I did like a YouTube channel, and I did that at the time when I had a very young kid. And like, I didn't really change my lifestyle at all. And my marriage was, you know, I had some trouble in my marriage because of it. Because like, luckily, you know, it worked out. I had to, you know, obviously redirect my effort to my marriage. It's, you know, focus on that. Cause like you said, you take your eye off of it and it starts to wilt and atrophy. And it's exactly when you're saying that, like that in my head, I was like, I had a brand new, you know, son, very young. And like, I just kept doing the shit that I was normally doing. And I didn't adjust my life at all and just try to add more things. And you have to, like, I think you just have to realize, like, in having perspective and being able to recognize that too is very important. Sometimes we don't recognize when these things are getting so out of proportion.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. It's happened to me many times, many times.
Is there something, you know, and I think that kind of like a light bulb goes off, or like an alarm goes off that tells you like, hey, something's off here. Something needs to be changed. Is there something that you kind of sense or you have a feeling of?
Yeah, I think it's results, man. Or yeah, like, I mean, if you look in the mirror and you've got a gut, right? Damn, okay, I got to get in shape. I got to put attention on my diet and exercise, right? Or if you, like, business is an easy one, because if you take your attention off your business, generally it just stops making money, right? Unless you got really lucky and it's super systematized and it's in a specific industry. But even then, like, sooner or later, like, the nature of this reality is a tendency towards entropy. Everything breaks down. And one of my mentors taught me this. He said, if you take a brand new house, brand spanking new, in a subdivision in suburbia, and you leave it alone, you don't touch it, and come back in 5 years, it'll be a wreck. If no one else touches it, it will naturally, like, decay and tend towards entropy. And as men, specifically, I think humans generally all have this capability, but it's men's prerogative. A man's nature and his job is to impose order upon the world. Right? Like that's our imperative. We came like men civilized the planet. Like they civilized the harsh the harshness of nature, and they make it conform and bend to their will, right? Like that's your natural instinct, is to impose order. And it's the thing that I wish wasn't the case, but when you get older, you realize what you wish for and what's reality are not necessarily the same thing. The fact is that this is an ongoing, never-ending thing. Is this reordering and ordering process, and this process of giving your attention, and it just has to be done forever, right? Or you have to hire someone to do it for you in certain aspects of your life or business, or you have to delegate it out to someone else. But like whatever you want to grow, it's got to have attention on it.
Yeah, the delegation. I think that's something where you probably understand this as a business owner. Eventually, you get to that point where you're like, all right, because the jiu-jitsu side of you is like a me thing. So you just want to shoulder the burden. I'll just take care of it. And then when you get out, especially with a business, you're like, you can't do everything, and you have to hire people. And then that becomes a whole new set of skills that you have to take on.
Yeah, and there's an inherent paradox in that as well. Is no one's going to do it with as much care and love as you're going to do it on your own business. But the problem is you just can't do everything, right? Like sooner or later you have to delegate. That's one of the shittiest paradoxes in business, I think.
Yeah. The because you were talking about burnout.
Yeah.
And I know you have an instructional on like Jiu-Jitsu for a Lifetime, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
With that, what is the idea behind that instructional? So you're talking about like obviously burnout. You're talking about doing something, for a lifetime. So I imagine that there's something going on there with those. But what is that instructional about, and like kind of where did it come about?
Well, that was I decided was going to be one of the last jiu-jitsu instructionals I made, because I've made so many over the years, like just so many. And I just wanted to like distill the essence of like these important things that I'd learned over this lifetime of jiu-jitsu, right? Like, and it's kind of a play on words. It's like jiu-jitsu for a lifetime because I've done a lifetime of it, but also like how to keep doing jiu-jitsu throughout your lifetime, like to make it last a lifetime. I remember Roger Gracie once said, he said, jiu-jitsu in the right hands can be made to last a lifetime, but in the wrong hands, it lasts a few years, right? He was talking about Roger specifically, Roger Gracie. And he said, yeah, like with Roger, you can see it's in the right hands, it's going to last a lifetime. And what I realized, let me give you an example of one of the things in the video, is this understanding that just like in life, in jiu-jitsu, there are seasons, right? Like there's a season where you're young and strong and flexible and your body bounces back and you can train 2 or even 3 times a day, 6 days a week, right? And like, that's cool. And then there's a season where you're getting older and you can't train like that. And very few people stop to think about that, to stop to think about the fact that, yeah, okay, Gordon Ryan is doing all these inversions and leg locks and like training twice a day and fucking competing. But like, I'm a 45-year-old executive and I've got all these pressures of family and all these other things. Like, am I in that season? Like, no, probably not. Like I hate to break it to you, probably not, right? So why are you trying to copy this dude? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I remember that's one of the things like I learned early on is like a lot of the guys that you're trying to emulate, you're wasting your time because they're all on huge amounts of performance enhancing drugs. They're genetic freaks and they have no like external like pressures or worries. So they can just live on the mat, right? So like to try to model them, yeah, you're going to be exactly like them. You're going to be a broke jiu-jitsu guy living on the mat, right? Or you're going to win a couple of competitions and then fade into obscurity like most of them do. So like, yeah, you have to know what season you're in, right? Like I'm in the fall season. I can feel I'm in the fall season of my jiu-jitsu career. So am I going to train like my 20-year-old blue belts who go nuts and compete every week? And like, no, that's dumb. I'm just not going to do that, right? Like, so that's one understanding. But then I also have like this technical components where I show like how my game has evolved over the years, and I show the concepts that I'm using now that have stood the test of time that I was using 20 years ago and still use today. Or I'll show some of the mobility stuff that I've been using to keep my body reasonably healthy so that I can stay on the mats into my older age. So it's a very unusual product. It's unlike anything you will have seen, because it's not just a technique video. It's not just a concept video. It has concepts, it has techniques, it has philosophy, it has musings. It's quite unusual.
And again, where did that like originally come from? Because obviously, like, most people just, throw up some techniques and stuff like that. So like what made you want to put together like something, say like, here it is, this is all the stuff I've gathered, here you go, right? Like obviously not just techniques, but also just the philosophical elements. Like what made you want to put all that together and say, all right, I'm going to share this with people?
Well, Chewy, you seem like a creative guy from what I can tell. I don't know too much about you, except I've never heard a bad word spoken about you. But I can see, based on your logo and some of the stuff you put out there, that like you're creating things, right? And I'm sure you've experienced this as well. Like the best stuff you create, it just kind of like, it just bubbles up into your consciousness. It just like, I don't know. It's this weird, I haven't really like put words to it or figured out how to systematize it or replicate it. But when something needs to come out of me, like a book needs to be written or a video needs to be made, my mind just starts bringing it to me. Yeah. So when you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, like it comes up to the surface, and then it's almost like I've said this to my wife before. It's like, I'll say this for a video or a podcast or a project I'm working on, whatever. It's like, I have to get this out. I have to go do this, because it's like my attention like won't let go of it. And it's like a rumination, but of a good thing. It's like, and you get excited about it. I'm like, I have to get this out, and it won't be done until I make the video or until I do the thing. And then once that thing is done, I'm like, oh, relief. I can finally be done with it, but it had to be done.
Yep. That's exactly. Yeah. So to answer your question, like, that's pretty much where it came from. It's just like, oh, this thing needs to be made, right? So that's how it happened.
Where do you look for like inspiration now, or like like I don't want to even say motivation, but like even jiu-jitsu, right? You've done so many years of jiu-jitsu. Like what inspires you, or what kind of interests you, or even like just really gets you focused on jiu-jitsu now?
I think it comes back to the conversation, or earlier part of the conversation. It's seeing my students get better, Eugene. Really, I've got this one student. Like, this dude is so fucking good. He's like my protege. He's been training a couple years, and already like it's a challenge for me to beat him. I've got to throw everything into it, and seeing him get better, and like seeing my students get better, seeing the level at the academy grow, that is my inspiration now, truly. And obviously, it's not how it used to be, but man, it's still really, you guys know what it's like when you put in like a chunk of very specific, focused, intense training time. Like, let's say you want to get better at finishing from the back, which has been my recent thing. Like the past year, I've really developed this very specific system. I've taken little pieces from online. I've taken pieces from what my coach Roger taught me. I've taken like stuff that I've developed myself, and I've like woven it all into this thing that works for me. And it's fucking, I'm a killer from the back now. And I'm like, yeah, this is cool. It's like that experience of getting better and seeing yourself get better. It's priceless, right? It's an amazing feeling. So those two things, watching others get better primarily, and then like seeing my own progress and skills develop, is also very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Nicolas, if people like are interested in what you have going on, they want to kind of get in contact with you, follow your podcast, check out the instructional, what are some places where they can do that? How can they get in contact with you and do those things?
Thank you for asking, Eugene. The best place is if you go to that's bit.ly /coach Nick G. That's all one word. And Nick is with no K, just NIC. So it's bit.ly /coach Nick G. Just Nick G. Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. And that'll take you. It's like it's a little what are those things called?
Like a landing page of some sort?
No, not a landing page. Those things where
the link trees.
Link tree. It's a link tree. Okay. Sorry, guys. Cool. It's been a long day.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
We got you.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. Chewy, you got Anything?
No, brother. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah.
We're approaching that hour, so
Yeah.
be respectful of your time. But I appreciate you being on, and we'll get this posted up, and we'll have we'll put the link in the show notes
Yeah, I'll
and stuff
get it
like that, so people can check you out if they haven't heard about you before.
Thanks, guys. No, you were really fun and easy to talk to you. And yeah, Chewy, as I said, never heard a bad thing about you, and good to finally connect with you, man. And thanks for putting out all the good stuff. I see you're prolific, bro. You've really contributed to the art, and it's I appreciate that. I respect that.
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Again, hopefully you enjoyed the part where we dove into the sort of just different stuff, in the beginning, and then we got into jiu-jitsu towards the end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And again, check out Nick's stuff if you're interested in what he's got going on.
Yeah, and I'll share that. It's bit.ly/coach Nick NICG. That was one of my favorite. I like when somebody kind of asks, "Can we do some different questions?" When he said that, I just find that I want to be better. I always want to work on improving a podcasting, right? Because I enjoy doing this. It's something I have fun doing. And so asking better questions, I always get a kick out of somebody saying that's a really good question. I was because I always try to think, you don't want to ask the same shit all the time. Like they've answered 100 times. That guy's probably done. He runs a podcast, he's done 100 podcasts.
He's been around for a long time.
He's been around forever. He's answered all this stuff. So if you can pull something unique out of him, I think it's always fun to do that. And I think we did that.
Well, we definitely surprised him. He was like, "Oh, I thought we were just going to talk about some jiu-jitsu stuff." I was like, well, and also too, with like I said with Nick, I know I kind of gather some ideas from him, from following him, and so I'm into some of that stuff. I've gone to men's retreats.
Yeah.
I've gone to meditation camps. I've done stuff like that, and so I like that stuff. It's not necessarily something I do all the time or that my main thing, but I am into that stuff, and so and I think we're all this way, right? Just like jiu-jitsu. You start training for a little while and you get pretty good at a position. What do you want to do? You want to go try a new position. So, okay, we got a great jiu-jitsu podcast. Just let me ask a different question today. I'm going to try something different. We're all that way. Again,
we're trying to grow. We're trying to evolve.
I just think humans, we like novelty. We like newness. We like trying new stuff. You know what I mean? Again, we always like trying new stuff. And I think people, everybody enjoys that to some degree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think everybody, whenever they develop a skill or they have a job, they want to, experience that job in new ways. They want to take the skill and they want to use that skill in new ways. If you have a wife or a husband or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, you want to have experiences with that person in new ways.
Spice it up.
You want to do different stuff. Just the way it is.
Get that lingerie out. The other person.
Or you could also just be taking a trip somewhere, Eugene. We didn't have to take it there.
You can take it wherever you want, but now you know what I'm doing my spare time.
That's right. Anyway. Eugene's wearing lingerie.
I am. I look good in it. Real good.
I'm sure Miss really appreciates it.
She does. She loves it.
That's right. So, guys, with that said, thank you so much for being here today. Hopefully, it didn't run you off with that comment or that mental image. If you guys want to support the podcast, again, big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this thing happen. If you guys want to support the podcast, check out some of our sponsors. Charlotte's Web. You can check them out at charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off. That's CHEWJITSU 20 for 20% off. You can go to epicrollbjj.com. My buddy Matt runs a cool website with lots of, I don't want to say cool website, cool business, cool company with lots of really good jiu-jitsu gear. Great designs, good quality stuff. You can check them out at epicrollbjj.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu for 15% off. If you guys are interested in stepping up your security with your phone, your computer, whether you're traveling or at home, you can check out NordVPN. Again, you can check them out at nordvpn.com/Chewjitsu. And if you go to that website that I just gave you, the Jiu-Jitsu one, you can get up to 4 months free, along with a 30-day money-back guarantee on the offer. And so that's a pretty good deal. And again, the money-back guarantee is you can try it out, and if you don't like it, you can always get your money back. Pretty sweet. And guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, if you guys would like to receive my daily email, along with 3 free jiu-jitsu resources that I give away upon joining. You can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. And upon joining, I will begin sending you the emails. You can unsubscribe at any time, but it'll also give you access to the free resources that I give away on my website. So guys, again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week.